Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now a three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies drop their second consecutive game. For the second consecutive game, their offense fails them. They struggle to score. They lose to the Denver Nuggets on national TV, 105-91. They are now 0-2 on this road trip that we circled as being difficult. They got caught napping in the first game, of course, against the Thunder. Ja Morant controversially thrown out in that one. Although technically this is not a full road trip. They came home after the Thunder game. So they flew to Oklahoma City, played the game, lost, flew back home for a couple days, then flew back out to Denver and lose to start this 3 consecutive games on national TV streak. The first time the Grizzlies obviously have ever played on national TV on 3 straight games. They came out flat in the first quarter. It was 31-14 after 1. That's the fewest points the Grizzlies have scored in a first quarter this season. It's the fewest points the Grizzlies have scored in any quarter this season. It's also the fewest points the Nuggets have allowed in a quarter this season. The Nuggets shut down the Grizzlies. A lot of it was they played a lot of zone. They seemed like they were okay with other guys trying to beat the Grizzlies other than Ja Morant. I mean, they were guarding Ja Morant and sending extra guys at him, but knowing that, all right, we're going to force the ball out of his hands, and when he passes it to Steven Adams at the free throw line, we're not going to give him other options. If he passes it to Conchar or Roddy on the wings, who cares? Let them shoot. And so Ja Morant finishes with a big statistical game. He gets a 30-point, 10-assist game. 35 points, actually. Ja takes him 26 field goal attempts to get there. He gets to the line. In the second half, that is. He makes 3 out of 6 3-pointers, but it's nowhere near enough. Because Ja had very little help. The wings weren't scoring. The Grizzlies weren't making 3-pointers. The Grizzlies make 5 3-pointers. There's a lot to take away from this game. If you want to just start with the 3-point shooting, that's the whole story. 5 made 3-pointers in an NBA basketball game. Nowhere close to competent 3-point shooting. If you just break it down to the players besides Ja only making 2, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? There also was the little issue of what felt like a biased whistle. I am not a referee complainer typically. The last few days, I worry, are turning me into a referee conspiratorialist. I mean, it certainly felt like the referees were trying to send a message to the Grizzlies in that first quarter. The Nuggets got 10 free throws in the first quarter. The Grizzlies had 0. The first half free throw numbers were hilarious. 20 free throws for the Nuggets and 3 for the Grizzlies. If it wasn't for Jeff Green missing a ton of free throws for Denver, the Nuggets would have had an even bigger lead. Nuggets fans might say, oh, we were the more aggressive team. No. Both teams kept taking it into the paint. Ja Morant, for the second consecutive first half, was not fouled on a shot attempt, according to the referees. There were lots of plays where Ja drove into defenders, took some contact, and there was nothing. Meanwhile, Bruce Brown's driving to the goal, using his off arm to hit Zaire Williams getting an and one. You're getting Brandon Clark and Santi Aldama seems like taking hits square in the chest, getting called for blocks. In the third quarter, it was the fourth quarter, excuse me. In the fourth quarter, there was one that I put on social media about, they called a foul on Brandon Clark for setting a screen. No one knew who the foul was on. Jeff Green thought it was a foul on him for an illegal screen. If you look at it from the camera angle of the broadcast camera angle, you can't see anything. If you look at it from the baseline camera, you can see that Brandon Clark does gently nudge Jeff Green in the back. Doesn't affect the play whatsoever. Do I think the referees had a meeting and were like, let's get the Grizzlies for Ja Morant embarrassing us, for Ja Morant calling us liars on social media, for the nonstop multiple days of all media saying the referee screwed up in the Thunder game? No, I don't think they had a meeting. Did they do it naturally? I don't know, man. It certainly seemed like something was up. It certainly seemed like a very one-sided whistle in the first half specifically. Now it leveled out. The Grizzlies started to get a benefit of some calls. And also, if you're a person who really, truly thinks referees have a heavy influence on the game, you might say, oh, this cost the Grizzlies a chance to find their rhythm to compete in the first quarter when the game got away from them. I'm not all the way there. The referees didn't cause the Grizzlies to only make 5 3-pointers. Like, that's just some bad basketball. That's some bad shooting. Could it have been closer in the first half if the Grizzlies were awarded a few more foul calls? Of course, of course. But I don't think this was totally an issue of the referees costing the Grizzlies a game or anything. This was a blowout. This wasn't close. They were down 17 after the first quarter. They only scored 40 points in the first half. They were down by 15. You felt lucky to be down by 15 in the first half. 40 points is the second fewest points the Grizzlies have scored in the first half this season, only behind the 36 they managed at Dallas in the third game of the season. The next fewest points in the first half, it was their last game against the Thunder. They scored 43. Offense has really been a struggle recently. In the first half, they didn't really get on the offensive glass. They didn't get out on fast breaks. They didn't force turnovers. They started forcing turnovers in the second half. Offense came a little easier. Again, Denver's not a good defensive team. Denver came into the game with the 28th ranked defense in the NBA. This game moved them up 3 spots. They're now 25th, thanks to the Grizzlies struggling to score. You could argue this was the Nuggets' best defensive performance of the season. Some of the Grizzlies' offensive problems, in my mind, were self-inflicted. Because of all the foul calls in the first half, we had our players getting in foul trouble. Talked about this so many times. Like, Jaren Jackson Jr. got in foul trouble. He only ended up playing 21 minutes and 45 seconds. He played 22 minutes in a game the Grizzlies lost. Did he foul out? No, he did not. I know we're limiting Jaren's minutes, but foul trouble, man. You take him out in the first half when the game is close, and then you get down by a lot, so the game is not close when he comes back in at the end. Jaren had 5 blocks and 3 steals in 22 minutes. That's the second 5-block, 3-steal game of his career. There have only been 11 games in Grizzlies franchise history where a player had at least 5 blocks and 3 steals. Marc Gasol has the most with 3. He once had a game with 8 blocks and 3 steals. Jaren Jackson Jr. only playing 22 minutes in a loss? That hurts, man. The game before against the Thunder, he was not in foul trouble whatsoever. He played 28 minutes in a loss. There's a minutes cap on Jaren, apparently. But don't do it because of fake foul trouble. The argument for taking him out is he's going to play worse. He's going to be more timid. He's not going to be as effective. If he's worried about fouls, okay. And, of course, if it's a close game, you want him to be available. You don't want him to foul out early. But you cost yourself at least 6 minutes of Jaren Jackson Jr. being on the basketball court. If we're going to say 28 minutes is what he plays if he's not in foul trouble. I mean, Jaren's last 4 games. All right, this game, 22 minutes played. The game before, 28 minutes, no foul trouble. Game before, 13 minutes because of foul trouble, and it was a blowout. All right, you win by 40, so he doesn't need to play. Plays 13 minutes. Game before that, 24 minutes. No foul trouble. Well, it's good. It's a blowout. Didn't have to come back in. This guy's going to be so fresh and rested when we get to the playoffs. But worse than the Jaren Jackson Jr. foul trouble, I can concede the argument that you might need to save Jaren, and he can't be the same defensive player of the year caliber guy if he's in foul trouble. Although he made Jokic miss 2 layups when he had 5 fouls. Jokic doesn't ever miss 2 layups in a row. Jokic was worried about Jaren blocking a shot. I assume Jokic just would have bodied into him knowing Jaren had 5 fouls, but that's a good reel for Jaren's defensive player of the year case. That Nikola Jokic was concerned enough about Jaren that he rushed 2 layups and missed them both. But even worse than worried about Jaren's foul trouble is worrying about foul trouble for backups. Santi Aldama, got in foul trouble. The idea that Aldama could be in foul trouble is absurd to me. If he fouls out, who cares? The reason it really stings, I like Aldama just fine. Very solid player. Having a great season. But there was a trickle-down effect for foul trouble. Because of Jaren being in foul trouble, and then because of Aldama being in quote-unquote foul trouble, that limited Brandon Clark's minutes. Brandon Clark was not in foul trouble, but he only played 5 minutes and 55 seconds in the first half because of the foul trouble of the other 2 guys he's allowed to play in the front court with. Brandon Clark played under 6 minutes and a half because they had to put Steven Adams back in because they were like, oh, Jaren's got 3 fouls. We can't put him back in. Aldama has 3 fouls. I'd hate for him to pick up 4 in the first half. What in the world would we do if that happened? So they decided to put Steven Adams back in early in the second quarter, earlier than they normally do. And because they refused to play Brandon and Steven Adams together, Brandon gets pulled out early. Brandon is punished for the Aldama fouls and the Jaren Jackson Jr. fouls. This is nuts. It's nuts to me, at least. I don't think the world's going to collapse if Brandon Clark and Steven Adams play any minutes together. I don't think the world's going to collapse if Santi Aldama fouls out in the first half. Foul trouble for your backups is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. At the end of the third quarter, the Grizzlies are down 14. They got down by as much as a 19, I believe, in that third quarter. They get it within 14. You're down 14 after 3 quarters. You played 36 minutes. Brandon Clark has played 6 of them. Brandon Clark comes in the fourth quarter, has a nice fourth quarter. Gets a lot of offensive rebounds. Very, very effective. Gives the Grizzlies some energy. Helps them out for this bad shooting team by picking up some of those missed shots. I think it's super weird to play 36 minutes of a basketball game and only play Brandon Clark 6 minutes because some of his teammates, not Brandon, because some of his teammates are in foul trouble. Feels a little bit like coaching malpractice. And I know winning a regular season game is not the goal. They are happy, I guess, to give everyone playing experience, to use the full rotation, which is why they still pull guys out with foul trouble. They'll say, next man up, let's do your thing. But like the next man up is Steven Adams coming back in. I'm happy when Steven Adams plays, but don't steal Brandon Clark's minutes. The fourth quarter started with Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Dylan Brooks playing together, which I obviously love, that 3-man combination. I think it is the Grizzlies' best front court pairing. Also, Ja Morant had a huge third quarter. He stayed on to start the fourth quarter. This might be the only time all season Ja has started the fourth quarter. I did not look it up. I did not go through game by game. Sorry about that. But Ja starts the fourth quarter. All right, you're down 14. You got to make a run. So you have Ja, you have Zaire, you have Dylan, you have Brandon, you have Jaren. Love this five-man lineup. This is the first time in the last two games that Ja has played with Brandon and Jaren. That, to me, is, again, it's a problem. Ja, Brandon, and Jaren playing together, especially alongside Dylan Brooks, that's one of your best things you can do. I don't know why we save it. And why it's susceptible to not happening if there's foul trouble or, okay, there's ejections. You can't control that. But saying, hey, there's foul trouble, that's why we didn't get to this best combination. It's weird, man. It's weird. But none of those things cost you the game. I don't think, at least. Not playing these specific combinations, I don't love it. Probably didn't cost you the game. But like the combination of you make 5 3-pointers, you get kind of a rough whistle from the referees. Maybe you're not playing your ideal lineups. All of that combines to, okay, this is going to be a struggle, and we're going to end up on the wrong side of it. Also, you're not getting any support offensively from the non-Ja Morant players. Maybe that should be the biggest story. Maybe it's easier to complain about these little minor things than it is to say, hey, guess what? Conchar, Roddy, Zaire, you got to give us something. Dylan Brooks, you got to play better. I mean, Dylan Brooks had another just disgusting first half. He was 1 for 9 on his field goals in the first half. Then when the Grizzlies got within like 10 or so, he airballed that 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. Kind of a quick shot. The camera went right to the bench. You could see Scootie Penn saying something, then Taylor Jenkins saying something. I couldn't figure out exactly what they're saying. I watched it so many times. I'm not a lip reader. If you are a lip reader, please tell me exactly what they said. Fun fact, that air ball was Dylan's only miss of the second half. He was 4 for 5 from the field. To me, the bigger issue is the other players. You got very, very little from your bench once again. You got next to 0 from your wings. If Jaren's only going to play 22 minutes and finish with 8 points, you know Steven Adams can't score. He just doesn't score. If your wings give you nothing, well, that's why you end up with 91 points. Let's get into that in a little bit more depth right after this short break. WWE Friday Night SmackDown is coming to FedEx Forum Friday, January 6th. Catch your favorite SmackDown superstars live, including Drew McIntyre, The New Day, Liv Morgan, Sheamus, and many more. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com or at the FedEx Forum box office. Okay, the Grizzlies' wing play was far from ideal. Dylan Brooks missed all 5 of his 3-point attempts, finished with 11 points, did get 7 rebounds and 3 steals. Love to see that. Conchar got the start. Donut. 0 points. Only played 13 minutes, which is a little bit strange to me. Not sure what that's about. If they didn't feel like he was effective attacking this Denver defense, it seems like he's supposed to be out there as a floor spacer. I like Conchar's contributions. I feel like he's an important piece to this team, but Conchar gave you 0 points. In the last 2 games, he's now given you 3 points in a total of 29 minutes played. He made 1 3-pointer last game. In John Conchar's last 10 games, he has made more than 1 3-pointer just 1 time. And in that game, he made 2. In his last 6 games, he's 3 out of 12 on 3-pointers. He's barely taking 2 3-pointers per game in this span. He's not giving you any offense at all. David Roddy, little of the homecoming game. He played college basketball at Colorado State. All right, Roddy was active. He picked up 3 steals. That's awesome. He scored 8 points. Unfortunately, he was 1 out of 5 on his 3-pointers and 1 out of 4 from the foul line. The previous game, David Roddy was 1 out of 6 on 3-pointers. The game before that, he was 1 out of 6. David Roddy's now made 3 out of his last 20 3-point attempts. He's not providing you the 3-point shooting that you need. Zaire Williams. All right, Zaire Williams had one awesome play. Love to see it. It was a pick and roll between Ja Morant and Steven Adams. And then when the help defender steps up, when Steven Adams frees Ja Morant to get into the paint, Ja throws the lob to Zaire. Perfection. The vertical spacing that we want from Zaire. That baseline cut, backdoor cut, whatever you want to call it, catches the easy lob. That's the dream of Zaire. Added that with the 3-point shooting. Well, guess what? The 3-point shooting's not there. Not just that, all the shooting isn't there. We're now 6 games in, 108 minutes played. Zaire is 2 for 27 on all non-dunks and layups. 2 for 27 on anything that isn't a layup this season. Made 1 3, 1 mid-ranger. That's giving you 0. The positives, there are positives to Zaire's play so far this year. Again, 108 minutes is not a ton. It's obviously, not much. But his rebounding and assists are way up, so maybe that will hold. The scoring will eventually come back. The shooting will eventually come back, but so far he's been a giant 0 on the offensive end. So now you have Zaire, not really giving you anything. He scores 2 points in this game. The previous game, he also gave you 2 points. So if you combine the last 2 games, the last 2 defeats for the Grizzlies, you combine Conchar, Roddy, and Zaire all together, they've played 100 minutes total. They've combined for 22 points. 15 of them are on Roddy. If you do per 36 scoring, that's 7.9 points per 36 minutes for those 3 players combined. That is disgusting. You're getting nothing offensively from those guys. Combine that with, again, Steven Adams, who doesn't like to score, Brandon Clark, who is essentially just a dunker. You have so many times where the defense would collapse on Ja as a release valve. He would throw it to Brandon or Steven Adams, like at the free throw line. When Brandon and Steven get at the free throw line going up against like a zone, they're not really going to do anything. They're going to throw it back to Ja. If for whatever reason the defense comes to them, then they're going to throw it to someone on the wing, and they need a Conchar or a Roddy or a Zaire to make a shot. And those guys aren't doing it. In this game, it seemed like the Nuggets had some good discipline, and they were like, all right, Steven Adams has the ball right here. Who cares? Brandon Clark has the ball 16 feet from the bucket. Good. That seems perfect. We will take it. So you got to get more from Roddy. You got to get more from Zaire. You got to get more from Conchar. I'm honestly confused how little Conchar played in this one, but he was not the favored guy in the rotation. Maybe he's dealing with something injury-wise that's affecting his shooting, his scoring. But, of course, we go back to he's not a scorer. Scoring is not his natural basketball language, if you will. Other stats, Ja had 7 turnovers in this one. He had 4 in the first quarter. He did not adapt really to not getting the whistle. If he bumps into a guy and doesn't get the foul call, he didn't really have a plan B. Again, a lot of points, good number of assists, but the 7 turnovers, he's top 5 in the NBA in turnovers per game. Only Joel Embiid and Russell Westbrook average more turnovers per possession. Another couple notes about the lineup. When you play Denver, you're supposed to win the non-Jokic minutes. Like, that's the plan. I mean, Jokic is the best. 2-time MVP. He might win it again. He's on a little historic run. Basically, every game he does something new or fun as far as, like, comparing it to historic stats. Like, he didn't score this time. He only had 13 points in the game. He'd been averaging tons of points. He had 40 in his last game. But he had 13 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists, which is just a novelty, a 13-13-13 game. The only players ever to do a 13-13-13 game are Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and now Nikola Jokic. But you're supposed to win the non-Jokic minutes. The Grizzlies did not. In the first half, when Jokic went out, the Grizzlies played a really great lineup as far as I'm concerned. They put in Tyus Jones with Roddy, with Dylan Brooks, Brandon, and Jaren. They did not cut into the lead. Then, because of the weird foul trouble, we started getting some stranger lineups in the second quarter. We started doing this. Actually, this was also into the first quarter. I really hate this lineup. I've been saying I'm not passionate about lineups this year so much, outside of not liking Tyus and Ja minutes. But this is the first lineup that I've decided I don't like. It's Ja and Tyus with Roddy, Aldama, and Steven Adams. They've only played 57 possessions together, which seems impossible because I feel like I see it all the time. They're -7 net rating, which is no big deal because, again, 57 possessions is meaningless, how small that sample size is. I don't enjoy it. I don't feel like Ja, Tyus, and Roddy are particularly good on the defensive end as far as they can't contest shots. You saw the Nuggets making a handful of threes like Christian Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. We're just catching the ball comfortably and shooting in a rhythm because if Tyus Jones closes out on you and you're 6'5", that's nothing. Tyus is too short. Same story for Ja and Roddy. Those guys aren't big enough to contest full-sized NBA wings. You know, like you got to be right on them to make these contested to contest the shot. So it seemed like they were really easy three-point shooting shots. So I don't love that lineup. It also, in my mind, where's the offense coming from? It's only Ja and Tyus basically going to provide you points. Even though Roddy's stepped up the scoring as far as getting in the paint, scoring on the two-pointers. Just the three-pointer has abandoned him after it kind of swung back around briefly. Then, because of this fictional foul trouble in the second quarter, we saw something unique. We saw the Grizzlies go super small. This is something we theorized they might do in the preseason. We hadn't seen it very much. They played Ja and Tyus together with Zaire and Dylan. Zaire and Dylan at the 3-4. When we found out Jaren wasn't going to be available to start the season before we found out Zaire wasn't coming back at all, we thought, hey, maybe they'll start Dylan at the 4 or Zaire at the 4 or something. We hadn't seen this, and they played it, and again, not a huge fan. Feels like a desperation move. It also feels like a lineup designed in a lab to be the worst possible defensive rebounding lineup you could assemble using NBA players. I mean, Zaire, yes, his rebounding numbers are up over his rookie year, but his rookie year, he was just bad at rebounding. Dylan is not a good rebounder for his position. Ja gets them, but they're normally the uncontested variety. Obviously, Tyus, I mean, if one of those guys is a shooting guard, they're terrible rebounders for a shooting guard. So they did give up an offensive rebound, which felt like, confirmation bias for me. They gave it an offensive rebound on a free throw, led to a three-pointer. I found that very frustrating. I did find it interesting that those four guys, it was Ja, Tyus, Dylan, and Zaire, and Brandon Clark was the fifth guy. I'm not sure if I said that yet. Those four, Ja, Tyus, Dylan, and Zaire, played 0 minutes together last year, which I would have thought they would have done it at least once. But it turns out, according to Cleaning the Glass, at least in non-garbage time, those guys logged 0 minutes together. Second half, the lineups were more traditional. They didn't do anything that weird. I guess they weren't worried anymore about the foul trouble. Again, no one fouled out, guys. Whew. What a relief. Nobody fouled out. Santi Aldama's home road splits. Here's the updating of the stats. They continue just drifting apart. At home, Aldama averages 12.6 points per game. His shooting splits 53, 40, 81. On the road now, 7.5 points per game. His shooting splits 41 overall on field goal percentage, 28 from 3, 72% from the line. Now, after this loss, you have to go to Phoenix. Another very, very tough game. I don't know if Devin Booker is going to be available. This game is on Friday night on ESPN. We circled it in the preseason. We circled it a week ago. We said the schedule gets tough now, starting with the Bucks game. Well, it turns out, hey, we won that game by 1,000,000. We're feeling great. But now you look back, all right, we're 1-2 since the schedule got tough. Not awesome. You're 6-9 on the road. 13-2 in home games, 6-9 in road games. Your point differential on road games, you're minus 4.9 per 100 possessions in road games. That is 21st in the NBA. Home games, you're the best in the NBA. Plus 16.6 net rating. And maybe it is just your inconsistent shooters play better at home. Your Roddies, your Aldamas, your Conchars, you can depend on their shooting more at home. This is where you need Desmond Bane desperately. I mean, it's been a roller coaster. When Bane first went out, the Grizzlies looked horrific. And it was like, wow, we're going to struggle to keep our head above water while Desmond Bane's not here because we don't have shooting. And then we won a couple, and then we went on that homestand and put together the 7-game win streak. And you're like, whoa, are we the best team in the NBA? This is awesome. Now it's coming back down to, oh yeah, this is what it's like without Desmond Bane. This is kind of what we thought it was going to be more like. Maybe the 7-game win streak, a little bit of an aberration there. You catching the Bucks and blowing them out. That's one of the games where, all right, you have these games every season where everything goes right for you and everything goes wrong for the other team. Maybe that happened for the Grizzlies against the Thunder last game, but now you lose to this Nuggets team, a very, very good team. The Nuggets have taken over first place in the West by virtue of a tiebreaker of winning this game. But the Grizzlies are going to have to get that production up and down the roster. They're going to have to let Jaren Jackson Jr. play, I think. Let the man play his 28 minutes. Don't rob us and rob Jaren of his 28 minutes played. And then you're going to have to, perform against some of the elite teams. Playing the Suns on Friday. Then obviously the Christmas Day game against the Warriors on Sunday night. Still no updates about Desmond Bane's injury. Maybe the eyes emoji was about Danny Green publicly acting like he was coming back even sooner, saying he'd be back before we know it or something like that, although we've heard words like that before. As far as I know, there are no secret injury updates about either Steph Curry or Desmond Bane for Christmas Day. The Grizzlies should be favored in that game. I mean, the Warriors are incredible at home. They're awful on the road. The Warriors have the worst road record in the NBA. They lost again on Tuesday. They're 3-15 on the road. But the Grizzlies have this stretch. It's tough. When the road trip's over, you have to play the Suns at home. Then you got to play at Toronto. Then you got that Pelicans-Kings. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, back-to-back. A very tough stretch, and it's feeling tough right now with that loss. Unfortunate loss against the Nuggets. Anyways, I hope you are having a wonderful holiday season. Happy Hanukkah to everybody. Merry Christmas to everybody. And I appreciate you listening. The next episode will probably be out on, let's say, Tuesday. But no promises. Again, happy holidays, everyone. Please do me the favor this holiday season of subscribing to my YouTube channel. That's all I want. Just subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel. Anyways, hope you have a great Wednesday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.